Here on a Saturday, it is a Convergence Report with Mike Thomas, live streaming directly out of the downtown Windsor Business Accelerator at 720 Olette. Today on the Convergence Report, I have with my co-host Aisha Coburn, and what we're going to be talking about really is been the biggest news that's been going on this week with the extreme polar vortex, Arctic cold that's been hitting the province of Ontario and going down as far as Florida. Is the tragedies that have been happening all week long, really, in regards to more Ontario, and there's probably deaths all the way across the United States and Canada, but we're kind of going to focus on a couple of them and to kind of talk hopefully at great length about the tragedies around the death of Elijah Marsh, and we'll also take a look at the death of Mark Stroh's.
Yes.
Can take a look at Mark Stroh's. So that is what we're going to talk about on the Convergence Report today. I can say whether or not it's the Facebook karma, it's all driven from the immediate news of social media that it's out there, whether or not it's Twitter, whether or not it's Facebook, whether or not it's all the latest, greatest stories that are up on the web. We try to gather stories and we bring that news to you. That's what we're looking at doing. So we'll start right off, Isha. Tell me, let's get started about Elijah Marsh. What do you think?
So according to the National Post, this was the last footage taken of him at the lobby of the apartment he left, and he actually just let himself out. He was in just diapers and a t-shirt, and they say that he left around 3 or 4, almost between 3 or 4:30 a.m. and he was wandering the streets. It was really cold. He was barely in any clothes, and by the time that the family woke up and noticed that he was missing, at that time the doctors were saying that his vitals would have still been really bad. He was showing really bad signs of not being able to make it, but that was around, I think, 10 o'clock when they said that.
When it finally broke about 10 o'clock or 10 a.m. that they finally discovered that he was missing. He was staying at the grandmother's house, grandmother's apartment, I believe.
Yes, and they found him, like 5 minutes away from the actual apartment. He didn't really make it that far, and even though there was a lot of people out searching for him, they searched 100 kilometers away almost, and they only found him
it was meters. It was
away,
meters.
yeah.
It was actually just a few houses down. That's exactly where it was at.
Yeah, my mom was actually following this story, and when they woke up, there was an Amber Alert.
And she's from Toronto.
Yeah, she's from Toronto. There was an Amber Alert in the morning, and that's when people decided they wanted to get involved and try help find him. And then that around around 10, I think it was. At 10 o'clock.
Well, 10 a.m. is when a volunteer located him.
Yes.
That's really what they're trying to say. At
yes.
7:30 in the morning, when the grandmother got up,
they woke up, and they had the Amber Alert.
And they said, my grandson's missing, my child's missing, and then we have to find him. And of course, the bitter cold. He's not in the apartment. They've searched everywhere they can search, and now they know they have to go outside. And volunteers basically came from anywhere, and he was found about 300 meters away, which is so very, very close. And thinking if you just ran outside, it's so devastating. You just ran outside and started, again, not even knowing which direction to go into, but he was really, really that close. And it's an unbelievable story. And again, in this day and age, and for our little one to get out that quickly. Yeah,
it's just, my mom was telling me that up in Toronto, just communities are getting together wherever, around the location of where he was living, that there's flowers and teddy bears and all that stuff out for him, and the community just really is trying to come together and help the family mourn their loss of this 3-year-old. I mean, it was so unexpected. It could have happened to anybody, and it's just crazy that it had to happen in general. I know that my mom, she said that a lot of people were donating $20 here, $40 there. I think I read that one person donated up to $250, and it's just crazy that if he had lived in somewhere I don't know, Brazil or somewhere south, that he would have been okay, temperature-wise,
It just shows you, again, it just shows you the extreme weather that's been happening. And it leads us to a great number of stories. We'll definitely on the Convergence Report, we're going to definitely do some follow up, because we're going to follow what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The first issues come up. How did he get out of the apartment, and then how would he have the ability to get through those apartment doors.
Yep.
And I know that you can just do push bars nowadays, and he's only 3, but if you look at little ones, they're much more creative and inventive than we'd ever think on any given day, whether or not it's in JK or daycare. So we know that they have the ability to do so. So are they going to make changes to whether or not your house, but specifically to apartments,
Yeah.
so that you cannot get out?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just wondering what they would do to prevent this, because if you raise the handlebars, like, what's to say some other freak accident might happen where, I don't know, a fire starts and then the kid can't reach the handle to get out of the house, like, or the apartment, like, where
Exactly.
where would we?
Well, that's what happens. You start getting into, and again, the whole world anymore is about risk management. So if there's any liability on an apartment or an older building, this is where we still get into whether or not it's a child getting out and having this tragedy happen. It actually began with making it a bit better for those people that are disabled, and then now there's a cost to it to make those changes. So who's going to absorb those costs? Are there's going to be funding available? Everybody can say how sorry they feel about the event. Whether or not there was tweets actually from the mayor of Toronto, John Tory, Kathleen Wynne. But you definitely know there's mechanisms trying to be put in place to prevent this happening again, no matter how extreme this particular weather was. It could have happened in January. It could have even happened in December. It's not unexpected as far as the cold that we've had this year in middle February. But it's not that it hasn't happened before, as we're almost getting ready to bust some records as being almost the coldest February in Ontario. So again, that's one of the major issues, and we're definitely going to follow that up, because again, it's cost. To apartment owners, to the landlords, and of course, who could probably push that cost down to the tenants themselves. But in reality, when you have an event like this, you have to try to put together every measure to make sure that it's not something as simple as pushing open a couple doors and then a little one, a 3-year-old like Elijah Marsh ends up dying that quickly, because the exposure was just, he didn't have a chance.
No, it's sad. I mean, from even when they woke up and realized he was missing, he didn't have a chance from then. So like, it's just crazy how this happened. I see there was a charity though, hosted on Tilt.
Yeah, actually, it's actually it's on Tilt, and it was. I'm trying to get the fellow's name here. Okay, I think his name, it was Edward Keenan. Okay, Edward Keenan, of another 3-year-old boy. He starts a crowdfunding campaign for funeral. It was actually designed for the funeral of Elijah Marsh, and we want to call it viral. I guess it kind of went viral, and from trying to raise approximately $20,000 for the funeral costs for Elijah, it has grown to, I believe, it's almost at $150. If $146,000 has been collected, and the story that I kind of picked up. From the Toronto Star. I'm trying to think of Toronto Star, or no, www.thestar.com, was the fact that it was really only $20 or $40 donations to show you how this is really pulled at the heartstrings of the people. I'm not even going to say it's Toronto. It's going to be the people who would be watching this across the world, probably.
Yep.
Okay, and then donating this much money and trying to ensure that the family is well taken care of in regards to at least Elijah having a good funeral. Again, I have no clue on the well-being of the family itself, but definitely this would be a great assistance to try to help them through it. And it's going to be. I don't think they've stopped it yet. I don't think they've asked people to stop donating. So if you want to take a look at it yourself on the Tilt website, you can make your own decision on whether or not you want to contribute and at what level you want to contribute. So, but this is just amazing how much money was generated in a very, very short time to try to help out the Marsh family.
Yeah, I hope that the family definitely feels encouraged by the community just coming together and really, this, like I said before, this could have been anybody's child, and hopefully the family isn't beating themselves up too much. There's a lot of other people stepping forward and talking about this and just really stressing that this was an accident, it was a fluke, like no one should be really beating themselves up about this, and just to learn from this now and try and make better choices on how to protect the children in the future from this happening again.
Yes, and not never trying to make light of any of the situations, but within 24 hours they had another example in the Toronto area, in the Etobicoke. where another little one was actually, he was uninjured. Okay, they found him quick enough, but here it was with the story breaking, the news breaking, and that and all the tragedy that was around Elijah Marsh's death. Here we had another example, and I think they were actually looking at potentially charging the parent for not keeping an eye on it, for not child abandonment, but going to find a way to charge it. They are trying to emphasize to people that in this weather you need to watch your little ones. You have to do that.
Yeah.
It's as difficult as it is, not for little ones, okay, or even for the seniors. As far as trying to make sure people are getting indoors as quickly as possible, okay, and then that brings us, unfortunately, it brings us to the story of Mark Strode.
Yes, he was, I think, the first victim of this extreme weather in February. He was out with some buddies, out for a nice night out at a bar, and what happened was he went back home in a cab, and I believe after reading the story and getting more in depth about his character, like he seemed more self-sufficient. He drove on his own. He drove on his own, and he got into the cab, or maybe his friends helped him, I don't know, but he got home alone, and you can tell as a 29-year-old guy, like, this was probably a lifestyle of his to, be very self-reliant and self-sufficient and not let his disability get the better of him. So, but that's just my conclusion. So he was on his way home, got out of the cab, paid the cab left, on his way up the driveway, and I guess something happened in between the cab and trying to get up to the door, and he must have fallen out of his wheelchair, and all night just laid out there, and same thing kind of with this kid, just could not get back onto his wheelchair, couldn't get any help from anybody. It was late hours at night. I think it was around 2-3 a.m. that he fell out of the chair, and it wasn't until some people at around 6 or 7 a.m. came across his body, and he was still his body was still alive, but he was unresponsive, and so they called the ambulance, they brought him, they tried their best, and there was some footage. If you guys want to check it out on YouTube, just type in Mike Stroh's, and there's footage actually of him being taken out of the ambulance and them trying to administer CPR on the way into the hospital. So it was just another crazy story. Unfortunately, they could not revive him. He didn't make it. Just another, situation where it was like that. They said it was around minus 25 degrees Celsius that night, but with the wind chill, it was making it feel like minus 40 degrees Celsius. So,
okay, and exactly. I
yeah.
kind of have a chart here, and it looked at the wind chill factors, but it's really not about the factors. It's about the temperature, and they're saying as far as risk of frostbite or the length of time you should be outdoors, exposure-wise, they're saying minus 28 to minus 39. They say, yeah, it's definitely a moderate risk. I'm getting tired of my little laptop here.
Yeah.
Okay, of like live TV drives you crazy. But anyways, a moderate risk, 10 to 30 minutes at 28 to 39. So it doesn't take very long. And you don't know if he was there all night. Yes, he definitely. You start succumbing. It's what it says. 6 hours this temperature is a very long time, and hyperthermia can set within minutes. And so it wouldn't have taken very long for somebody to be laying there overnight from the bar. Maybe by the time the sun starts to break in the morning is when people might have finally found him as they're getting up and getting on with their lives in the morning, that was going to happen. And the same thing for an Elijah Marsh, which they're looking at. It was about six hours that he would have been exposed, even and being just a little 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe we think that as an adult we can withstand it a little bit more. But it's still, those temperatures are telling you only should be outside 10 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that is the reality. So it's so very, very difficult when we have this type of weather. And I guess if we don't get it on a regular basis and we see polar vortex on the TV, we start not paying attention to it. We just take it like, oh yeah, it's cold outside. No, it's freezing cold outside, and it could cause death very, very quickly. Something like the Mission. The downtown Mission in Windsor, as I try to follow all the different news agencies, and here they rarely do it to never do this. I believe I saw it on CTV. They stayed open 24 hours the last couple nights or a few nights this week to make sure people had a warm place to go, because the homeless, regardless, people, human beings cannot be outside all night long in this particular weather.
Yep.
And that's the reality. So when something like the Mission the Windsor Downtown Mission, and all the homeless shelters are making the effort to do that. That shows you how deadly cold it is outside. So
I mean, I know I was recording, I was doing something for school, and I had to hold a camera up, and literally just of like 2 minutes of my bare hand being exposed, I couldn't feel my fingers, and like the tips were just like hurting, and like it's so cold outside.
What time of day was that?
And that was like noon. It was 11:30, 12 o'clock, and that's when the sun's supposed to be at its peak, and it was still that cold out. So I could only imagine when it goes down how cold and frigid these temperatures must be.
Yeah, so two exact tragedies with two, the people that need the most help or being watched over, I guess, when you're looking at the disabled and the little ones or little kid, like 3-year-old Elijah Marsh. And also, again, don't forget the seniors. There's a lot that take buses, okay? They were out there at the bus stops. Those shelters, I've tell you, those shelters work a little bit. So anytime you can assist anybody in this particular weather, I know we live in a crazy world nowadays and nobody wants to help anybody, but we need to get back when we have extreme weather like this to be able to keep our eyes open, looking to help everybody and get them to a warm spot or get them to their location, and make sure that we're not leaving anybody unattended, saying, you know what, it's not my business, I'm too busy. We need to make sure that we're taking care of each other. It's unbelievable.
Yep.
And that goes with part of the story, I think, at the end of the day. With it was really, we talked about people and how quickly it can happen, and the story after story has been happening in Windsor-Essex area in regards to animals, whether or not it's your own dogs and cats. As far as pets go, a lot of people leave their dogs outside or let them go run and not even thinking two things. They'll let me know when it's cold, they'll come back in. That's not always the case with this crazy snow that we've been having.
It's not.
Okay, and I don't try to make light of this at all. Okay, peeling the swans. Okay, peeling the swans and the geese and the birds off the lakes or off the ice, and trying to assume that some are just getting so beaten down, so beaten down by the weather that they're so weak they can't even find food. And then we got to be careful, because I think there was a story that don't be wheeling so much bread at them, because it doesn't really help them. They have to make sure we're feeding them the proper the seeds and things, like making sure they're getting the proper food and nourishment so they can be stronger. So anyways, they've been bringing them in, taking them to the shelters or to the animal shelters, and trying to make sure that they're surviving so they can re-release them.
Yeah.
Okay, once they're strong enough to go back out again. So again, it has been extreme. We cannot pretend that this February weather has been what we've had on a normal basis. It's just not true. As far as the weather goes, they're saying that Windsor-Essex, we'll keep it local here, Windsor-Essex is leading toward right now to be, we've been record breaking every other day, and we're looking at that it's going to be the coldest February, at least so far since 1978.
Wow.
Okay, and if it continues, it's going to break a century-old record. So that's how cold it is out there right now, and we really need to keep an eye on that. On the weather and everybody out there.
Yeah, I remember when like the cold first started, like the end of last year, like everyone was like, oh, it's so beautiful, and oh, they were counting down the days for the snow, and I'm thinking, like, who does that? It's gonna be freezing. I don't understand how people can count down to wanting it to be cold out. And like, I remember, I think it was last year, so Christmas of 2013, everyone was like so amazed at the ice storm, and it kind of looked like that photo you have of the
swan being covered in ice.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, it looks pretty, but it doesn't feel good, and it's really damaging, doing a lot of damage, and we really need to take time to prepare for it and take extra precautions in protecting the animals and the young and the elderly and the disabled. And
what everybody's talking about, it's not the fact that, okay, it looks beautifully picturesque with the way the snow is. It's not snow. It's basically frozen snow. It's ice. Okay, it's very hard to slip and fall on, very easy to slip and fall on, but when you hit hard.
Yeah.
Because everything is ice chunks. I was driving down the road yesterday, figuring at nighttime there's a great big hunk of snowplow chunk of ice that fell onto the road to the edge. If somebody hit that, it would actually just take out their car.
Yep.
Okay, they're not soft little fluffy things of snow. It's bitter, ice cold out there, and all the snow and ice around us is that also. So that again is what's been happening in the Windsor area. Another story that brought up, just because you're talking about some of your friends, and I'm going to say friends from school. What have they been saying in regards to how cold it is? Did it close the school any day?
Yes, one day it was closed. I think it was 2 Mondays ago. They just, like, nobody was
But
gonna
that
come.
was the snow, though. That was the snowstorm.
Yep, the snowstorm.
The discussion
Yep.
now is whether or not we should be sending people out in the cold to go to school. Was attendance down those
Yes,
particular days?
attendance has definitely been down lately. I believe I can speak for a fact at my school. I'm not too sure about the university, but I can only imagine that it would be a lot. I mean, the attendance
very
would be
similar in the numbers, yeah.
It's very cold out. I mean, it's even doing kind of not so well for the downtown industry. No one wants to go outside, and that's a lot of the things my friends have been saying at school. Like, we want to go out, we want to have fun, and you know, do things that young people do, and we can't because it's so cold out. You can't wear skirts, you can't wear shorts. You can't go out looking, you know, fun and funky. You have to be bundled up and turtlenecks, and so nobody really wants to go out. I know for school the attendance is causing the grades to kind of go down a little bit. It's been kind of a struggle, I know, for me in media, because I have to go out, hold a camera or hold a mic out, and you know, these buttons are so tiny you can't really use gloves. So I know a lot of students in my school have found a struggle of this weather. Like, it's just, it makes you not motivated. It's a little bit scary. It's causing a lot of death.
Yes.
In such a short period of time. Like, why would somebody want to go out and expose themselves to that?
And then segueing into that and trying to be right at the end of the show, we have about 41 seconds left. I can see that. Spotted in Windsor, they have a snowball fight, and they want people to show up. It's at, oh geez, I had it out here. Spotted in Windsor, it's going to be at, the Ford Test Track, I believe. Ford Test Track on Seminole. And if you're to take pictures, put it up at #WinSnowFight. And this might have, you know, and use the nice fluffy snow. Okay, don't use the ice chunks when in this particular snow.
Check the snow before you throw it. It could have ice